Have you ever had a week where you were facing a huge, impossible deadline at work? In those final days, you were a machine. You were hyper-focused, incredibly productive, and you ignored everything else. You hit the deadline, a hero. But the moment it was over, you looked around and saw the wreckage. You'd forgotten to pay a bill. You hadn't eaten a decent meal all week. Your house was a mess, and you'd been short-tempered with the people you love. Why is it that when we focus so intensely on solving one urgent problem, everything else in our lives seems to fall apart? This is the central question at the heart of the brilliant and deeply compassionate book, Scarcity, by the behavioral economist Sendhil Mullainathan and the psychologist Eldar Shafir. They argue that the feeling of having too little of something, whether it's time, money, or even calories, creates a powerful and predictable mindset. Today on Geeky Philosopher, we are going to explore this scarcity mindset. This is a journey to understand the hidden thief that steals our attention, our intelligence, and our ability to plan for the future. The first and most important idea to understand is that scarcity is not a personal trait. It is a temporary mental state. It is a form of psychological capture. When your mind perceives that you have less than you need of something essential, it triggers the scarcity mindset. This is not just about being poor. The busy executive with no time is in a scarcity mindset. The lonely person with too few friends is in a scarcity mindset. The dieter with a strict calorie limit is in a scarcity mindset. This state of mind is not a character flaw, it is a universal human response. And it has one powerful benefit and one devastating cost. Let's start with the one upside of scarcity. When a deadline is looming or you're short on cash for this month's rent, your mind becomes incredibly, brilliantly focused on solving that immediate problem. This is what the authors call the focus dividend. Scarcity captures the mind. It makes you more productive and more efficient in the short term. The looming deadline forces you to ignore all distractions and just get the work done. The need to pay rent forces you to be incredibly resourceful in finding a way to get the money. This is a real and powerful effect, but this short-term benefit comes at a huge and often invisible long-term cost. This is the core concept of the entire book. The authors argue that our cognitive capacity, our ability to think, to focus, to solve problems, and to exert self-control, is a finite resource. They call this our mental bandwidth. When you are in a state of scarcity, your mind is constantly and often unconsciously preoccupied with juggling the resource you lack. You might find yourself thinking, how will I pay this bill? Or how will I finish this project on time? This kind of constant mental effort acts as a heavy bandwidth tax, really weighing down your ability to focus on anything else. It's kind of like running a very demanding program in the background of your computer. Everything else you try to do, every other application you're running, just slows down because your resources are being used up. The science is clear on this. When people are put under a state of scarcity, their performance on cognitive tests plummets. Their fluid intelligence and their executive control, that is, their ability to plan and resist temptation, go down significantly. The authors found that the mental tax of being poor, for example, is equivalent to losing about 13 IQ points. It's not that poor people are less intelligent, it's that the constant stress of poverty is eating up their available mental bandwidth. So what happens when our bandwidth is depleted? Well, we begin to tunnel. The scarcity mindset, which gave us the focus dividend, now actually becomes a curse. It forces us to narrow our vision and focus only on the immediate, urgent problem inside the tunnel, while neglecting everything else outside the tunnel. The person who is time poor tunnels on their urgent deadlines and, they neglect important but not urgent things like their health or their relationships. The person who is money poor tunnels on paying this month's rent. In their tunnel vision, a high-interest payday loan seems like a rational solution because it solves the immediate problem. They don't have the mental bandwidth to step back and consider the devastating long-term consequences of that loan. The authors tell the powerful story of sugarcane farmers in India. These farmers are brilliant and effective at managing their lives right after the harvest, when they have a lot of cash. But in the months leading up to the harvest, when they are cash poor, they make a host of bad financial decisions. Are they smart for half the year and dumb for the other half? No, it is the same person. But their available bandwidth is completely different. The scarcity itself is what causes the failure. If scarcity is the problem, the solution is its opposite, abundance, or, more practically, slack. So slack is basically having a buffer. It's this cushion of extra time, extra money, or even just extra mental energy that, isn't really allocated to anything specific. Our modern culture, which is, kind of obsessed with efficiency and optimization, tends to see slack as waste. But the authors of Scarcity actually argue that slack isn't a weakness at all, it's a vital resource. Slack, honestly, is what gives you the bandwidth to deal with the unexpected. Like, if you have a bit of savings, that's slack. A surprise car repair is just an inconvenience, not some catastrophe that throws you into a debt spiral. And if you have some open space in your schedule, well, an unexpected interruption doesn't totally derail your entire week. Slack is what allows for long-term thinking. It's the mental space you need to get out of the tunnel, to look at the bigger picture, and to invest in your future. So, how do we build it? We can build slack into our finances by automating our savings, so we don't have to rely on our depleted willpower. We can build it into our schedules by creating simpler to-do lists and deliberately leaving some time unscheduled. We can build it into our projects by adding a buffer for unexpected delays. Scarcity is a profoundly empathetic and important book. It completely reframes how we view the struggles of others and ourselves. It teaches us that the bad decisions often made by people who are poor, or overwhelmed, or lonely, are not typically the result of bad character or a lack of talent. They are the predictable result of a cognitive state that any one of us could fall into if our own resources became scarce. It is a call to replace judgment with a deeper, more scientific understanding. And it is a powerful call to action for our own lives. It encourages us to stop glorifying busyness and to start valuing slack. It teaches us that building a buffer, a little bit of breathing room, is not a luxury. It is the necessary condition for clear thinking, for long-term planning, and for living a good and effective life. This book is a tool for building a wiser and more compassionate world. It gives us a new lens to understand our own minds and, a new sense of empathy for the struggles of others. It is a reminder that sometimes the most important thing we can give ourselves is a little bit of slack. If you are someone who believes in designing smarter, more compassionate systems, both for our society and for our own lives, then you are a part of this conversation. Consider subscribing to Geeky Philosopher, where we explore the ideas that help us build a better world. Thank you for your time.